Kingston Flemings is why the Houston Cougars will be national champions in 2026. Let's lock in and find out why.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NBA Draft Podcast with no ceilings. Thanks for helping us become the #1 sports podcast. What an accomplishment. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. It's a pretty good deal. My name's Albert Ghim, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, PhD in the pick and roll and homemade pizzas, Professor Corey Tulaba. Corey, it is an incredible time to be alive. College basketball is ripping and roaring. You were at MSG, Madison Square Garden, last week with our very own Nathan Grubel, and I wanted to. I'll say this: I was a little disappointed and sad that you guys didn't do like a whole feature on the food that you ate. I was expecting like an ASMR video, all these types of things. But Corey, I wanted to hear, what was that experience like? Talk to us about getting kicked out of the place and moving from place to place. Talk to us about the whole experience you guys had together.
So I actually did film a ice cream review. Had a little mishap with one of the ice cream vendors that I won't get into here that
Okay.
I talked about in the video. I did have a big lunch that day. I was taking the train in. I didn't necessarily know if I was gonna, what the timing situation. I was like, I gotta eat lunch just to be safe.
Okay.
So I just stuck with ice cream. But it was an incredible game, doubleheader at the Garden. And I've been there a couple of times already this season. I'm going to be back again this weekend for Illinois versus UConn. So some very exciting stuff. And also, if you're listening to this today, make sure you keep your eyes peeled for NBA TV for the No Ceilings Takeover, 6 p.m. Wednesday, Eastern time. Going to be fun. So
Wow,
just a little Easter egg there. Lock in, 6 p.m. NBA TV.
my heart just dropped, Corey, because I didn't even know that, and that is very exciting news. I love hearing that. But yeah, I mean, we're really like in the thick of things, and it's funny. The player that we're going to be talking about today, Corey, is kind of one of the main stars of all of college basketball chatter right now. He is a rising star, a prospect whose stock is going up, up, up right now. We are talking about Houston's Kingston Flemings. And so if you can, Corey, let's go into the lab. Give us your essentials on Kingston Flemings.
So Kingston Fleming, Houston Cougar, freshman point guard, but really combo guard. I think he can play on and off the ball. Listed via the Houston website at 6'4", 190. Looks long. Couldn't find wingspan measurements anywhere. I looked hard, and I was specifically looking hard for this because I remember distinctly that the Cougars Twitter had like posted a bunch of wingspans, but I couldn't find it. So maybe they scrubbed it. I don't know. These stats are for his first 6 games where he's averaging 30 minutes. Now, he did perform very well in the matchup against Tennessee. So these stats are not accounted for there, but he finished with 25 points on 10 of 15 with 4 rebounds, 3 assists there. So excluding that, these are his numbers, excluding that in, pretty great game.
Yeah.
16 points, 3.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists to 2 turnovers, 1.2 steals, half a block on 63, 50, 71 shooting splits, 70 effective field goal, 70.5 true shooting, BPM of 13. Those numbers probably going to go up a little bit after his 10 of 15 from the floor, 3 of 4 from 3 shooting night. So the kid, he just keeps on producing. Bit of a surprise, Chris Senek was kind of their big recruit. We actually covered Zay Harwell as another recruit, right? This is the third Houston freshman that we are covering in depth on this pod. He was probably the least heralded coming in of the bunch, and he's taking the ball, taking the reins, and he's run with it.
Yeah, Corey, it's incredible to hear you kind of put it into those terms. I didn't realize he was the third Houston guy we're already doing. But he's very much deserving to be here, to be the topic of conversation. As I mentioned earlier, he's kind of the talk of the town right now, and especially coming off of the performance that he put on today against the Tennessee team. And, they lost that game, but it was a very close game. And he had himself a really good outing. And, to be honest, Corey, I think a lot of the marquee skill set with him is going to be on the offensive end of the ball. And I think he's an extremely gifted and talented offensive player. And before I really did my deep dive, actually, Corey, recently on our No Ceilings pod, we talked about him a little bit, right? And so, getting deeper into his game and seeing how multifaceted his offensive game is right now and how advanced it is, more advanced than I think I was even expecting, was really interesting to see. But I'll hand it over to you, Corey. What were some of your initial takeaways when it comes to his offensive game?
So I think the thing that stands out the most to me is the pace he plays at and the way that he shifts gears, because he has this incredibly quick first step, like super, super bursty. But he uses that quick first step to beat his man, but then he's in control when the help is rotating. And so he plays out of these hezzies, and most people can play out of one hesitation, and he plays out of multiple hesitations en route to the cup. And that's where he's either going to finish or he's going to make, a slick kick out. I think from a pure point guard perspective, I wouldn't put him in the top tier kind of passers creatively in this class, although there are flashes for sure, but he can create paint touches seemingly at will. And so when Houston played Syracuse did a really good job of speeding him up and making him feel like he was playing too quick, and kind of he looked like he hadn't looked in any of the other games. So it's nice to see him bounce back against, a tough Tennessee team. But I really loved his pace and how he can use that to get to his spots, not only at the rim, but getting to the elbows at the mid-range as well.
Corey, you mentioned the hesitations and all that. I think the thing that I've liked about him is the same thing. He mixes tempos really well. Yes. And there's this thing that he does where he'll even mess around with his stride lengths. So I noticed on film, there'll be times he'll be taking these long, nonchalant strides. And it feels like he's just kind of casually moving down the court, and then he'll hit you with that burst. And because he was kind of going slower and nonchalant, all he was doing was setting up that extreme burst that he has. And I think the thing with his burst, Corey, is that he's so good at using the hezzies and using the mix in tempos to catch you leaning just a little bit. And the thing that I wrote here in my notes is, if you get caught leaning even for a microsecond, you're going to see his taillights. Is how he is, because he's so good at seeing when the defender is leaning the wrong way or overcompensating, and he will hit it so fast to get going to where he wants to go. And that type of stuff is special, Corey. And it's also really interesting to watch how he utilizes the mixing of tempos and his speed in the mid-range game, where he'll catch you leaning and he'll go, and then you're freaking out to catch up with him. He'll stop on a dime, and then you're out of the picture, and he's pulling up for a really easy mid-range jumper where he is very, very comfortable. And something that we talked about this past weekend, Corey, when we did our No Ceilings pod, is that the thing that I've enjoyed about him in the mid-range game is how comfortable he is, but also his ability to contort his body in different ways and to kind of put himself in different angles to get off the shot that he wants, whether he's fading to the left, to the right, or back. He's just very flexible and has great body control. Balanced to get off the shot that he's looking to get off. And so I really like that. One last point I want to touch on that I've really enjoyed: his finesse, soft touch finishing at the rim, where he likes just kissing it off really high off the glass to kind of, I think it's kind of a flex thing to kind of show everyone I've got really good touch, and he'll throw it up really high off the glass. I've really enjoyed that. Now, don't think he's a perfect offensive player, right? I mean, the thing that we're going to be monitoring, Corey, I think, for throughout the rest of the season is shooting volume from outside is on the lower end.
Yeah.
But as I imagine he's going to ramp it up a little bit. He went 3 for 4 today, which is kind of high for him compared to what he's putting up in different games. Going to be, we want to see how that looks, because another thing that we discussed, Corey, is that his jumper from the mid range and outside does look a little bit different. And that's something that he's, I think, smoothing out right now. And for me, the last critique that I want to bring up, I feel like at times he is a little bit upright. I just feel like there might be an opportunity for him to get a little bit lower, a little bit tighter with his handle, but maybe a little, like, stiff may not be the word, but maybe he is a little bit stiff at times. And
it's
that's
weird though, because because there is like a flexibility in it, but he doesn't have the side to side bend, like the Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, quick cross where you just that hang dribble into, like, he doesn't have like those kind of movements, which is fine, because he's still been really effective. But I think that's where you see stylistically sometimes it could look a little bit stiff because there isn't as much movement to him.
Yeah. And it's something that I saw on both ends of the floor, Corey, which we'll get into his defense a little bit later. But like, there is this kind of like uprightness to his game. And then I think adding strength is going to be something that we're going to have to monitor too. Like you mentioned, he's listed at 6'4", would you say 190-ish, right? Maybe he needs to get to like 200, 205 for him to be a little bit, more staunch. But those were like the main takeaways from me with his offense.
And I think with the shooting volume, we can look at it as like, oh, we want to see him shoot more threes, because we do. But at the same time, part of the reason that his efficiency has been so strong is because he's not forcing or hunting looks. He's kind of playing within the flow and playing to his strengths. And his strength is getting to certain spots on the floor. So when the time does come and he's got to get a kick out and a catch and shoot look, he's ready to shoot those. Or if a guy is going to go under and really, kind of tempting him by going under, he can let it fly, but he's not going to, spam dribble into a contested shot. And, for him, that's a pretty smart decision, because Coach Sampson is not going to probably deal with that from a freshman. He's somebody who is going to coach his guys regardless of how many stars they have next to their name, which, anytime a guy goes to Houston, like, I respect that decision, because what you're signing up for there. So, again, that's another kind of tip of the cap to Kingston's, in that he's going to get coached. He's going to get better, and we saw he had a big game early in the year, and Coach Sampson was like, yeah, but he gave it up on the other end. So, like, as well as he's playing offensively, if he's not defending, coach is going to let him know.
And Corey, both ends, like even on offense, it's something that I kind of want to piggyback off of what you're saying, is that like you can see it on TV too, right? Like, we're not in Las Vegas like right now, like Tyler Rucker is, but even from on TV, you can see how Coach Sampson is grabbing his guys, when they're free throws, timeouts, whatever, and he's in their ear and he's being really hard on them. But watching Kingston, he's locked in, he's listening, he's accepting the coaching. He's not like talking back, trying to be whatever. He's just accepting it, trying to take it and then move on. And the coachability, it's an underrated thing that we don't always talk about either, Corey, even us, but seeing him on film and like watching the games and seeing how he's interacting with Coach Sampson and that staff, he seems locked in. He seems like a guy who wants to be coached hard, who wants to continue to work and improve in his game, and has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I mean, even on this pod, I don't know if he's listening to this pod, but we did a Sinak pod before him. We did a Harwell pod before him. He might be like, man, you guys should have done me first, right? Type of situation. But
that would be Caleb Wilson who would be thinking that.
True. He'd show us his diamond-studded belt, and he'd be pretty upset. But overall, Corey, I think with Flemings, he's a really talented offensive player, and he's got some skills, but also he's got this athletic ability that I think kind of gives him a very clear advantage in terms of creating looks for himself and others. And you mentioned the passing before too. He's a good passer, not an elite passer, but a very good one. And some of those, drives when he's getting paint touches and he's hitting the shooter on the weak side or, at the top of the key, really nice stuff. Like he's whipping the balls out there
because he's in control.
Great. Right.
And you know what I like too, quickly, he plays off 2 feet.
Yeah.
So he's never going to kind of catch himself in midair without a plan. He kind of is going to be able to, and that goes to show where maybe he's not the most creative playmaker all the time, but he's a sound decision maker all the time. And that shows in his assist to turnover.
Yep. Yep. And then, that speaks to his versatility, right? A guy you can throw the ball to and trust with the ball in his hands, or he can play off ball as he continues to grow with his ability to shoot from outside and all that stuff. So yeah, love that. And I just think overall, just really talented offensive player. But after the break, we're going to get into Kingston Fleming's defense. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Basketball season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. And that's where Gametime comes in. The app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I've used the Gametime app a million times living here in Southern California, whether I want to see the Knicks play the Lakers or the Clippers, or if I'm going to Anaheim to see the Yankees play the Angels, or I don't know, risking my life going to the Dodger game to see the Yankees play them. The Gametime app has always come in clutch. You can see what your seat looks like. It's such an easy process. And if you wait long enough, you can get really good prices on your tickets before the game. There's just so many advantages to using the Gametime app. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase, where terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. All right, Corey, we are back, and we're talking about Kingston Flemings and his defense.
Yes.
Now, this is the side of the ball where, as you mentioned, Corey, playing for the Houston Cougars, there is a huge emphasis on this side of the ball. Mm-hmm. Coach Sampson does not mess around when it comes to playing defense, playing team defense, playing together, locked in, communication, right? Having your teammates back. All these things are very important principles to Coach Sampson and his Houston Cougars teams. Now, how does Kingston Flemings fit into that defensive culture in your eyes, Corey?
Well, I mean, as far as fitting into the effort level, clearly you don't play 30 minutes plus per game for Coach Sampson if the effort's not there. So that's the start. I think he has the physical tools. He looks long to me. Again, like I don't know what the wingspan is, but I bet that it's, at least +3, +4, which is a good sign. Yep. I think he could be disruptive. I think sometimes, though, he can get himself out of position, overcommitting, gambling, kind of leads to scrambles or hard closeouts. He'll get turned around. And he even on the ball, he's not he'll sit in his stance, he'll slide, he could do all that stuff. He'll contest without fouling, but there are times where he could be a little more reactionary instead of forcing his man into a decision. When you looked at the way that Jamal Shed defended in that system, right? Yeah. This is a guy who will get up in your shirt, can tell you what kind of deodorant you're wearing. And I haven't really seen that from Flemings yet in the same way. And look, Jamal Shed is, he was a special defender. But I think that's kind of, if you want to be an impact guy, a difference maker, especially the way that the game is played now, point of attack defense is so important. That's why teams have, we've mentioned it over and over. We see the uptick in on ball pressure, even in the backcourt, to really make guys work, kill clock, make guys make decisions, junk up the offense, and not just allow guys to kind of set things up. And when you're the point guard and you're defending, the head of the snake at the point of attack, that kind of aggressiveness, I think, is something that is valued at the next level. And, I wonder if part of it is just like, hey, like, I really don't want to foul. I really don't want to make mistakes. Let me, kind of ease off a little bit. And then, when ball screens come, we'll do the thing that we do where we're playing, up to what they call the line of scrimmage, basically like not full on blitz, but getting to the level and letting guys attack from the weak side and still being able to be disruptive that way. But like, I don't think he's a negative on that end. I just don't think, like, I don't look at him and I go, this is the next like great defense. Yeah. Stopper, next great defensive guard, like move over Alex Caruso. Like, I don't see that, but he's got good positional size.
Yeah.
He's listed at 6'4". Tyler Rucker, who's in Vegas, he messaged our group chat. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if Flemings was taller than 6'4", which is interesting. So, seems like he's got good size to guard multiple positions with that length. And I think he's got a good frame to continue to put on weight. So, and Houston's strength and conditioning program is like tippy top tier elite when it comes to like getting guys stronger. So he's got the tools, and I think there's ways he can get better, but at the end of the day, I don't think he's necessarily hurting their team structure either.
Yeah. Corey, I think the way that you put it is perfect. I'm just going to read off a couple of the notes that I had that I think pretty much support what you're saying. So initially, my initial takeaway was that I kind of had like mixed feelings about his defense. And I want to explain because I think his level of compete is great. Like, he plays hard. You can see that he cares. I just felt like he needed a little some tweaking, and where that tweaking came for me was, you mentioned how he can get into a stance, and when he's in a stance, he has the requisite athleticism, mobility, stay in front of guys, whatever. The thing that I didn't love at times, though, was I felt like there were times when he wouldn't get into a stance, and he would kind of do the bending over thing, and then when he would do the bending over thing, his feet weren't as clean. His feet got a little choppy and not in a good way. But when he was in a stance, I liked it so much better. And so for me, it was just like, okay, like I think that could be easily coached out of him, taught to him. And then like as he gets stronger too, like him being stronger and being in the stance, having more power and center of gravity to kind of hold his own against guards is what I want to see. And I think it's very easily possible for him because of everything that you mentioned. He's got the skill set, he's got the athleticism, and he's in a great program where they're going to continue to help him to get stronger and develop his body. So my outlook for him, what I walked away with is, although I feel mixed now, I think he is well on his way to becoming a good defender. And like you, Corey, I don't think we'll look at him to be Lou Dort or Alex Caruso, but and it's unfortunate those two guys play on the same team, huh? But he can become, I think, a very good to, above average type of defender. And if he's going to be a dynamic offensive player, like we think he's going to be with what we talked about before, even being above average as a defender is a huge plus. And especially with the positional size as well. So think he's going to be a good defender. And I think the combination of his offensive skills, defensive skills, is going to lead to some good comps. And we'll get into those comps right after this break. The thing about hydration is when I'm hydrated, everything just seems to work better. My focus, my energy, my mood, even my skin. And that's where using Drip Drop can really be advantageous to you. Is doctor developed hydration that keeps you running at full power no matter what your day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. Whether you're hitting the gym or you're getting up shots or playing a little tennis, like I like to play, being hydrated is really, really important. And right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. So go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LockedOnNBA. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LockedOnNBA for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. All right, Corey, we are hydrated and we are ready to get into our favorite part. We're going to do some comps. And with a guy like Kingston Flemings, this kind of combo 1.5 guard who's got like a silky smooth mid-range game, but a lightning quick first step. I'm not saying that we've seen it before, but we might have seen it before. And there are some guys that will come to mind. And so, Corey, hit us with some of your comps for Kingston Flemings.
Okay, so I struggled a little bit coming up with like multiple comps, especially for like modern players. I'll say like the first guy who came to mind, and it's funny because I feel like they're almost like the inverse, where I think like Flemings has like some pretty strong offensive potential that we've been seeing, but his defense is behind the offense. But I think like their frame, the way they move, the way they operate, guys who preferred the mid-range, like he reminds me a little bit of like a more offensively tilted Cason Wallace, which is another guy that OKC has, which we mentioned before. Which I guess you could say for everybody. And then the other guy who I kind of thought was Ayo Dosunmu from Chicago, who was like another like 6'4", 6'5" guard with length, who's fast, and has become a really good 3-point shooter. But kind of do it all guard. Who he was in college a little bit longer. We were there to see him drafted in person at the Barclays Center and during his draft year. But those were the two names that kind of came to mind where, like, obviously he's not casing on defense, but I think he probably has, at least a slightly higher offensive ceiling.
Those are two really good. The Ayo one, Corey, really caught me by surprise. That's such a good one. Like, considering Ayo's game and size and his strengths and all that. That's a really good one. Okay. I've got three. Don't love them, but I think it's a mix somehow of all three. Okay. I only have one current guy. And I think Kingston is like way faster than this guy. But in terms of like size and the type of role he might have, this might even be a floor for him, or maybe like a mid-tier comp. Like a guy like Jordan Clarkson, who currently plays for my Knicks, right? Offensively tilted player, supreme confidence. I think Flemings is, eventually going to become a better defender than Clarkson has been in the NBA. But, some sort of like he could be like this really good bench scorer. Jordan Clarkson was once 6th man of the year, that type of player, right? Offensively tilted, combo-ish guard. Two other guys who no longer play, but were lightning quick, offensively tilted players. Monte Ellis and Ty Lawson were two names that I thought of, Corey. Now, I get it. Like, Monte was just...
Monte Ball have it all.
Yeah, man. Just, very interesting offensive player. Super athletic.
Super talented.
Super talented. Just super
and
talented.
I started seeing mixtapes of his son pop up, which is disheartening for our age.
Yeah. Of course. But also a guy like Ty Lawson, who didn't have like the longest career, but was a good NBA player, good college career, lightning quick, just a blur, when he got going.
And Kingston's way taller.
Of course. Yeah. Of course, way taller. But I just felt like some sort of mix of this where I see Flemings as like a very talented offensive player, really fast, can be dynamic, do a lot of different things on the floor. Some mix of those guys, but maybe with more defense.
I kind of like the Monte one, like for his offense. If Monte, I think, maybe was a little more coachable, maybe his career goes a little differently, but he was super talented, and that dude got buckets in an era that allowed guys like him to go get buckets. So I think that one's kind of interesting. Another guy that Kingston's probably taller than as well.
Yes.
So that's a good thing for Kingston Flemings and his NBA potential.
Yeah, the Monte one was just, for me, was like how comfortable he was in the mid range. Obviously he was terrifying.
Good elevation on the jumper.
Yeah. But, just some sort of mix of that is kind of how I felt about Kingston. And I think overall, with all the comps that we brought up, Corey, is we think he's going to be a good pro. We think he's got the skill set to be really dynamic on the offensive end of the floor and, be a really good offensive player with mixing in some good defense too. But hope you guys enjoyed this one with Kingston Flemings, a guy that we're very intrigued by and has really shot up the boards. But also, guys, we just want to thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day and for helping the Locked On Network become the #1 sports podcast. We've got another podcast this week, so lock in with us then. Thanks for rocking with us. My name's Albert. He's Corey. Talk to you guys soon.